Okay, so good morning, everyone. I can see people joining, which is lovely. I'm clicking the wrong buttons. I'll just give people a chance to sort of get here, as it were. Okay. I think that's it. Yeah, okay. So I hope I'll start this again properly. Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you here. My name's Lois and I work for the Learning Enhancement team at Middlesex, and my particular responsibility is looking after maths, stats and numeracy. So what I want to talk about this morning is just how we can support you if you are needing some help with any of that. So welcome to Middlesex. I think that's the first thing to say. It's really nice that you've joined us as students. And my first kind of question is, can you see your way ahead? Because I know that as you start at a university and you start a new course, it can be quite tricky to work out where you're going. So it might be that you have a very clear picture of what's going to happen, or it might be that it's all very confusing and you're not quite sure which way to go. So I hope it's the first, but I appreciate that it might be the second. So I think just so I know who I'm talking to, I'm going to ask you what you're studying. Now, I was going to ask you to put things in the chat, but for some reason, I'm not seeing the chat button on my thing. So I know Angela's here. I don't know if she's got the chat available.
I can't see the chat either.
Right, so maybe we don't have chat. That's interesting.
No, yeah, so we might not have chat. Zoom's always doing updates. But if anyone would like to unmute themselves, and you don't have to put your camera on if you don't want to, but you're more than welcome to. But if you just want to unmute yourselves and let us know, you know, what you're studying and a little bit about you.
Is anyone prepared to do that? Silence. Yeah, I don't know why. It's very bizarre, actually, because usually there is a very obvious chat button, and it's obviously easier to type things than to say things. Maybe, do you have, maybe you can, have you got, do we have, what do you call them, reactions? Yeah, I'm not seeing those either.
Yeah, no, I can see reactions on my screen.
Okay.
So, for example,
yeah. So okay. So maybe. Oh yeah. Oh yes. No, I have got reactions. I just couldn't see it. So maybe. I mean, yeah. Okay. I don't know what you're studying because. But if you want to tell me, if you think you are going to study, you are going to have to study some maths and stats. Could you do a sort of a tick or something in the reactions? You should be able to find that somewhere on Zoom. Sometimes it's at the bottom. Depends what.
So it's at the bottom of your screen. So it'll be next to where the breakout rooms are. So you just click on there. They've got loads of different ones. If you want to do the green tick.
So Mohammed's giving me a thumbs up, so he is expecting.
Oh, there we go.
I think. Yeah. Other two, not sure. Maybe. I mean, maybe a question mark. Maybe you're not sure. And I mean, again, so I'm going to ask, so Adrian is not thinking of doing it. So I suppose that then the question is, you're not expecting it, but
sorry, yeah, I'm going to study biomedical science, and I check already on my timetable the courses, and I didn't see math. So, but that doesn't mean that I won't study. So I don't know.
That is a very good point, and actually I can tell you that you may not see it on your timetable and you may not see it very much in first year, but I know for a fact that if you're doing biomedical science, you're going to be doing some statistics at some point. But yes, it can become, I'm not quite sure what your modules are called in the first year. I'm pretty sure by the time we get to second year, there'll be something called quantitative methods or something for biomedical science. So yeah, I think that's one of the things. It can be quite hard to see where it is.
Thank you.
So yeah, you will. You may not want to, but you will. Does anyone else, maybe the other two are not prepared to put mics on, and tell me if you think you know what it is or what it isn't going to be? No, okay. But I think one of the things, I would say is to try and find out, as much as you can before the course starts, and I know your lecturers will be helping you with all that, is just, what are you going to have to do, and, are you prepared for it? And obviously you'll be taught a lot of it, but sometimes, as I say, we do meet students who were a little bit surprised to discover that they were expected to do some maths in their course. And I mean, my next question really is how do you feel about that? And really, there are kind of two reactions to that. You might, if you know you're going to have to do some maths, that might make you a bit anxious. And you would certainly not be alone in that. And I think, again, if you come straight from school, then obviously your education has been really disrupted over the last 2 years. And I know that people may have missed, topics just may be missed. And equally, if you've had some time out of education, then particularly sort of math skills can get a bit rusty. So, with luck, you're not feeling too anxious. I'll say a bit more about that in a minute. And what you want to try and become, obviously, is confident learners. And that's very easy for me to say. And obviously, that's something we can try and help you with, is to turn you from a bit of an anxious learner into someone who's feeling very confident about it. And I'm just going to pause because I can see someone else is joining us, which is good. Okay, so one of the things that I think it can be quite a useful thing just to have sort of in your mind is what's known as the growth zone model of learning. And I think it applies to anything that you are studying, but I think it applies particularly to maths. And this is a kind of model, and it is only a model and a sort of an approximation, but I think it can help you sort of think about things. Welcome, Anthony. It's really good to see you. I'll maybe ask you a question in a minute. Just to sort of to be aware of where you are. So there are kind of 3 zones people have identified in this model, and you may have seen it before. So there's the comfort zone, which I think is self-explanatory, the growth zone, and then the anxiety zone. And the colours, I think, are significant here. So like I've got my next slide this time. Okay. Oh yeah, okay. So when you are in your sort of comfort zone, it just means you're really confident, you know what you're doing, you don't need any help, and it's all easy. Now that is great, and it's something that often happens when you're starting university. Some of the things you do or are asked to do, you will have seen before, because you will be in a class of people who've come from all different places, have studied slightly different things, and there's always a certain amount of just sort of trying to make sure everybody's sort of up to date with what they need to know. So when you are in that zone, it's great, but you're not really learning anything new. And obviously part of the point of coming to university is to learn new things. And where you really want to be is in the sort of amber zone, the growth zone, where you are learning new skills. And again, these in my context would be math skills or stats skills, or using some programs to help you with those kind of things. And I think what you have to expect is that when you're learning new things, you are going to make mistakes. I don't know anyone who's never made a mistake in their maths. Certainly I have made plenty in my time, but the really important thing is to kind of learn from them and to be able to persevere and to ask for help when you need it. And the place to avoid is the anxiety zone, the red zone. And that can happen because things are just a bit too difficult. You just feel anxious and helpless, and you just want to run away. You really don't want to be doing this anymore. And obviously running away is not a good idea in the long term, because, you know, if you're being asked to do something, it's because it's important for your course. So one thing I think is just to recognize if you're in that zone. One way to get over that is to go back to doing something you're very comfortable with. And also I'll point out we have a resource which talks you through other strategies, which are just sometimes just taking some deep breaths, or, you know, doing something else for a bit and then coming back to it. But you just want to avoid that if you can. Okay, does anyone want to ask any questions about that? As I've said, we don't seem to have a chat function, but if anyone wants to put on a mic and say anything. Anthony, we were just talking about whether people were expecting to do maths or not in their course. Okay, so the one thing I'll say about that is I'm not a neuroscientist, but I think there is some basis in neuroscience with this model. And one of the things is that when you are very anxious, your working memory is taken up with being anxious. And you need working memory when you're working with numbers and figures and maths and stats and things. So it gets in the way of you doing what you're actually trying to do. So the key question then is, how can we help? And the Learning Enhancement team is one of the many support services that Middlesex offers. It's all free to you throughout your time here. And there are various things we do. We sometimes run timetabled sessions. So we may have arranged with your lecturers that we will come in and do a seminar or do a lecture with your group. And that obviously we'll have talked to your lecturers about what it is that you particularly need for your course, and we'll work with them on that. So you may just see us, I've got me and one or two other colleagues that do math, stats and numeracy support, and you might just find us in a session. We also have some resources online, which I'll show you where to find them in a minute. So those are self-study resources. They're just there for you to look up things. One of the main things we do as well is we offer one-to-one and small group tutorials, and you can book or request these with us. So if you've got to the point of something and thinking, I'm not getting this, I'd just really like 30 minutes to talk to someone about it, that is something we can offer. And if a group of you want to talk about the same thing, you can arrange to come together. And we also do, you can request a workshop. So that's, there's a fine line between a small group tutorial and a workshop. They're essentially doing the same thing, but if it's a bigger group and you actually want us to come and teach you something, whereas I suppose a tutorial would be you asking questions more, we can do that as well. And again, it can be sort of on anything. And the Maths Help Centre is a drop-in service where you don't have to book, but you can just show up and ask your question. Or at the moment, we are running, certainly for the next year, we'll be running a mixture of online and on-campus things. So you will be able to see us on campus, but you'll also be able to see us, and you will see us sometimes online. And the sort of details, I'll show you the website in a minute, will be there, and you'll see what you need to do. So does anyone have any questions about that? Okay. So I suppose the next question is what can we help you with? And I said we are sort of tasked with supporting anything to do with maths or stats or numeracy. So it might be that you're asked to do some calculations. Percentages crop up all over the place. Very few degree programs don't have percentages in them somewhere. And it might be just using your calculator efficiently. So anything that involves doing a calculation that you're not too sure of, we're very happy to help with. You might be moving more into the kind of thing that you might class as maths. So you might have to use some formulas or equations or some logarithms, which you might not have met before. I think that does crop up in various business courses. Economics is famous for using graphs and formulas, and accounting and things where you have to work out various things. So that might be that. Also, already spoke to one of you about statistics, and statistics covers such a wide range, and it will depend on your course and what's expected of you, what you need to do. So sometimes it's doing things like averages, graphs and charts, which you've probably seen before at some point. But there are other kinds of statistics which you might not, known as inferential statistics, where you're not just saying these are the numbers of things I can see. This is the average income, this is the average expenditure, whatever. You're actually asked to see if there's any connection between, well, income and expenditure. You might expect there would be, but there are statistical tests that you can do to sort of test that hypothesis, and things like t-tests and ANOVAs, which again, you may not have heard of, but they're trying to say, well, is there a difference between these groups of people or things or organisms on some measure? And we can rather than just saying yes. I mean, a good example actually is I think we all kind of know that on average men are taller than women, and you can see, yes, the average male height is bigger than the average female height, but you can do a test that gives you some measure of is that a significant difference, or is it just happened to come out of my sample? And the other thing we can help with is using some, but not all, software. So the things we usually get involved with are things like Excel, which you might be using to draw graphs and charts, SPSS, which is a special statistical package, and Minitab, which is another one. They do very similar things, but again, depending on your course, I think biomedical science usually uses Minitab. Other courses use SPS. It depends what your lecturers think is most appropriate for your study. And yeah, how do you find us? So the first thing to do is to find our UniHub pages. So you're looking for UniHub study, and then you're looking for this page, which says academic writing and numeracy. So I have a lot of colleagues who help with academic writing, which is helping you write essays or scientific papers or reports or whatever. And that's basically, if you can find that page, you will then be able to find everything else. So we've got some information about there. The look might change very slightly, but I don't think the web address will not. And then I mentioned online resources. That's the maths, stats and numeracy resources. We've divided these into three. So there's some general numeracy where you'll find things like percentages and things like that. Statistics and quantitative methods, there's not terribly much there yet, but we're hoping to add to that. And then drug calculations, which unless any of you are on a nursing course, you won't be wanting to look at, because that is for all our nursing and midwifery students. And at the top there is a link to the anxiety resource, which again, if you are feeling anxious, just talks you through some ways of dealing with that. And what I should say is that we are trying to add to these all the time. So if there's something you think would be useful, we really encourage you to let us know, and we can see if we can put something together for you, or sometimes we can point you to things that are not on, that we haven't developed, but we know are good and are elsewhere. And this is the other sort of window on there. This is how you get support. So if you want to book a tutorial, you need to do it by one of these calendars. again, this might change over the year, but the same principle will apply. You will want, again, unless you're a nursing student, you will want the maths and stats calendar. And basically you look at a date and you look at the times available, and if there's something suitable, you literally just fill in some details and it is booked. And you'll get an email, and we'll get an email to say that you've booked, and then we'll just meet. And again, we will, at the moment, everything is online, but we will, I think, be offering some on-campus tutorials. So one of the key things that we're going to have to highlight here is to make sure that you are checking where you've booked for, because you don't want to book an on-campus one if you're not actually there that day. And I think that's just about all I would say. Obviously, any questions, please chip in. Other thing is, this is a repeat of our email address. If you've got any queries about anything, if you email us, then we will try and help, point you in the right direction. And also, well, we can't always promise, but sometimes, you know, we offer some tutorial, we advertise some tutorials, but sometimes people say, well, none of those fit my timetable, but how about, you know, could you fit one in on Thursday afternoon? And depending on what else we have to do, we might say yes to that. So that is a useful email to have if you think you would like to, and that is obviously on our web pages. Okay, does anyone want to ask anything? Again, I think you will need to put your mic on to ask, because we seem to have lost the chat function. Okay, well, I'm not hearing any questions, so I'll just say thanks for coming, and yeah, do hope to see you either online or maybe in person, and do enjoy your first few weeks in Middlesex.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.